If you screwed up Mother's Day worse than me, I will be very impressed. Good morning. Happy Monday. It is great to be back on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. I got home last night at about, it was, I don't know, sometime between 9 and 10. I was late getting out the door this morning, still kind of groggy from the emotional chaos that last night entailed. So, Mother's Day. Of course, Kate's a new mother of 3. Wanted to make sure that she had the day that she wanted to have. And everything was going great. Weekend went well. Got to get out with some friends and have a good time and spend some alone time yesterday. We kind of got a slow start to the morning yesterday and wanted to make sure that she was able to get out of the house on her own a little bit yesterday afternoon. So she heads out probably about 2:30, and Dad's in charge. What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, Dad was doing I thought Dad was doing a pretty good job, actually. Till about, 4:30, somewhere in there. So Dad makes the mistake of hanging out on the front porch with the 3 girls. Youngest, of course, Charlotte. She's a couple months old. And Woody. Woody wanted to come out, and Woody's 12 years old now. He's our Havanese. And he listens pretty darn well these days. He does. I take him out in the front every night, let him hit the head. We go back inside. We call it a night. That's what we do. He's okay off the leash. And we've got these railings on our front porch, so, really it is not like a front porch where he can just run wherever he wants. Usually he's in the corner by the railings, looking out through the railings, and I could block him from getting out into the front yard if I needed to. So we're all sitting there minding our business, and, we were probably 2 minutes away from going inside. We were right about to go back in when we're sitting there on the front porch on our swing, and we notice a couple of huskies coming down the driveway from a few houses down the road. And, I've seen those huskies, and he barks at those huskies all the time, but whatever. They've never actually interacted. But he starts going nuts, and the huskies start barking back at him. And the owner of the huskies decides that she notices me, she notices the dogs barking at each other, and she goes, I'm going to go the other way instead of coming past our house. She's going to turn around and go the other way. And I'm like, great. And I kind of wave to her, and, I kind of look away. Well, then, I guess the huskies didn't want to go that way because 10 seconds later, she's walking back towards our house. And I'm like, okay, this is not good. Because now Woody's losing his mind. And Chloe, our second, just loves dogs. And she thinks every dog is as nice as Woody. Every dog she sees at 3 years old, she wants to go pet the dog. And she just can't pet every dog, especially not 2 huskies that are walking down the street that she doesn't know and, we've really never interacted with. So now I'm holding a baby, an 8-week-old. Claire's 5. She's hanging out in the front lawn. She's doing what she's told to do. But Chloe starts walking towards the huskies. And we've got this problem where, her listening is challenging right now. Her listening skills are in a work in progress, shall we say. So she starts walking towards the huskies. And the huskies are on the leash with their owner. But I will say the 2 huskies combined weigh more than the owner. Owner's very nice. This is not, me knocking someone in the neighborhood. It's just, it's up to everybody to do what they want to do with their own dogs, but I don't know. I wouldn't be walking 2 dogs that weighed more than me. I'll just leave it at that, especially as a senior citizen. But once again, it's not my business. It's not illegal. It's my job to take care of my family. So at that point, Chloe's kind of walking towards the huskies on the front lawn, and I'm like, hey, get back here, get back here. She's not listening. Woody's barking, and he makes a mad rush at the huskies. Now, usually he runs up to dogs, if he does run up to dogs, and he'll kind of want to sniff them and, play with them and wag his tail. He's a 20-pound Havanese. He's 12 years old. He's an old guy. Now, he's a tough SOB. We found him at give or take 6 months old underneath our car as a stray in Woodward, Oklahoma. That's why he's named Woody. He's named Woody after Woodward, Oklahoma, not after Toy Story. So, he was pretty rough when we found him. But he's lost some of that roughness over time. He's been pampered here for the last 12 years since we found him. So usually he runs up to a dog and he'll kind of wag his tail and do his whole thing. Well, I don't know if I blacked out, But he runs up to these dogs, and they immediately, and he kind of goes after them, and they start going after him. And I'll tell you right now, you're a 20-pound Havanese going up against two Huskies. It ain't going to go well for you. And it didn't go well for him. So I'm screaming at him. I'm making sure the kids stay on the lawn. I'm holding, an 8-week-old baby. And I'm yelling at him and trying to pull him back off of these dogs. And thank goodness, I didn't really need to pull him off of the dogs. By the time I got there, he realized that he just made a big mistake. And he's bleeding from his ear, his mouth, behind his neck. And he's running back towards the house. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. Now what I should have done at that point is I should have pulled a Christy Gnome. I should have gotten in and got my 12-gauge and, put those Huskies to bed with cricket is what I should have done. But, it's not my style. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to give him the Christy Gnome treatment. I love dogs. But he runs into the house. He's bleeding. And by the way, at this point, of course, perfect timing. Kate's getting back to the house and sees this all unfold as she's driving down the street. And I'm yelling at kids, holding the baby, dog's bleeding. I mean, I didn't exactly look like Father of the Year as I'm, wrapping up Father's Day at about 4:30 in the afternoon. So he comes into the house. He's bleeding. Claire, our oldest, is 5 years old, and, she's, like, distraught. She's got her head in her hands, and she's like, oh, I've never seen this before. Woody's bleeding. Oh, Dad, what's going to happen to Woody? And, it's a Sunday afternoon, so the vet's not open. So we got one option. We got to go to the urgent vet, which is basically urgent care for dogs. It's down here on 135th Street. So, of course, I call them up, and they're like, all right, come by in an hour, be here at 5:45, get there at 5:45. Well, 4 hours later, we're finally out of there. Hundreds of dollars later, we're finally out of there. After he gets sedated, they got to clean out the wounds. They got to stitch up the wounds. He's got the cone of shame on his head. He's got 2 drains coming out of his wound holes so they can, leak any pus and bacteria that may form. He's in rough shape. He's in rough shape. God willing, he's going to be okay. But he's in rough shape. Listen, whatever I think of Huskies isn't really the point. I wish I obviously had him tied up to our porch, and that's usually what we will do. I got a little cocky. We were having a nice, slow Sunday afternoon, and 99 times out of 100, it's never a problem. He hangs out on the porch. He sits there. Even if he sees other dogs, he's not really bothered by them. But for some reason, those Huskies triggered him. I don't know what they say to each other as they, walk by the house and what kind of, smack talk they do to each other as they're barking at each other. I don't know. I have no idea. I just know a 20-pound Havanese running after 2 Huskies, 2 full-grown Huskies, is not going to end well for him. And it didn't end well for him yesterday. But I will say it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And I guess for that, I'm grateful because it's amazing. I think we all take, especially if you have a family, like little kids or really any kids, I think you take your dog for granted sometimes. He's always there. He's been there since before we had kids. And you just take him for granted, especially when you're trying to raise 3 little kids. And let's be honest, the dog kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But as I was sitting there in that urgent vet last night with him, and I'm, patting his wounds because he was bleeding for 3 or 4 hours. It was kind of just a steady drip. It wasn't like gushing blood, but it was a steady drip. I thought to myself, gosh, I was kind of thinking through. I imagine it's kind of what it's like. And thank goodness I have not experienced this yet. But when someone really close, like a parent or a spouse or a sibling is dying and you're kind of reliving every moment, not that I thought he was going to, but you do kind of have that reset moment with yourself and with your pet. And you're thinking to yourself, not that I thought he was going to go, but you're like, gosh, he is 12 years old. He's got 2 pretty sizable wounds on his head, and I really don't know how this is going to end. So this morning, I think he's doing all right. I checked on him. He was in his cone of shame, kind of resting on his little bed this morning. But it was nasty. And let's just put it this way. It did not make Mother's Day, or at least the end of Mother's Day, I should say, how it was supposed to end. I'll leave it at that. 913-408-7957 is our studio line and our text line here on KCMO Talk Radio. 913-408-7957. It's 6:45. Hopefully your Mother's Day ended better than mine did. Guys, I'm not blaming the person in the neighborhood. I'm not. It is true, as some of you know, that my dog was on the front porch and off a leash. Now, listen, I do have a backyard that is fenced in. Some of you asking that as well. But you need a change of scenery sometimes, right? That's just how it goes. I screwed up on that front. I readily admit that. But, I still can have an opinion on having Huskies that weigh more than the person walking the Huskies do as a senior citizen. I can still hold that opinion while admitting this did largely happen where, our 20-pound Havanese Woody got attacked by a couple of Huskies yesterday after he ran off our front porch while I was out there with the three girls and ran up to these Huskies, and it did not end up well for him. Got home at about 9:30 last night from the urgent vet. Several $100s later, he was back home with a cone on his head and a couple of wounds. His face, he's got antibiotics, he's got pain meds, and he's got these two things hanging out of him that I guess drip blood to get any bacteria out of him that may have been infected from yesterday. So I'm happy to admit that. Becky's in Kansas City. She's first up. Hey, Becky, happy Monday. Good morning.
Oh, happy Monday to you, Pete. My heart goes out to you regarding your dog. I think he'll be okay. You will get a lot of laughs out of the cone of shame. However,
expensive laughs, but laughs, I guess.
According to Kansas City leash law, I don't know what it is in Overland Park, you have to have your dog under control, even if he's sitting peacefully at your feet and you're like, oh, I've got a great dog, he'll stay right by my side.
Mm-hmm.
He either has to be on a leash or behind a fence. So
yeah.
I'm sorry, my friend, you were in the wrong.
Yep. No,
I think everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, no, legally, Becky, you're right. I was in the wrong. My dog ran off my property and got his ass kicked. So you're right. Legally, I was in the wrong. I don't deny that for a second.
Well, we'll be praying for Woody. I think everything's going to be okay.
Thank you, Becky. That's what he needs right now. Some prayers, and I appreciate that.
Okay, have a great day.
You too, Becky. Thank you very much. Learned that one the hard way. Fenny is in Overland Park. Fenny, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Morning, Pete. So sorry to hear about Woody. In his defense, I've got a knucklehead, a Wolverine in a Jack Russell costume, and she'll protect
a Wolverine in a Jack Russell costume. That's good.
She'll protect. Thank you. I bought her a leash off of Amazon that's 30 feet long, 35 feet long. I can secure her on a chair or the umbrella stand, whatever, and she can still roam the yard regardless front or back.
Mm-hmm.
And Woody was doing what he's supposed to do. He's protecting the brood. He's the family. That's his job. He was doing a good job. Those two dogs need to be muzzled. And all the chaos and everything that's going on around you and all your attention is being diverted in 10 different directions. They could have snatched that baby out of your arms, and no telling what would have happened. That lady needs to muzzle those dogs and walk them totally in the other direction.
Well, Fenny, I will say that's the one thing, and thanks for the support, buddy. That is the one thing that I am frustrated by, because we had an interaction where the person told me they were going to start walking the other way. So I admit I kind of took my eyes off the situation. I'm like, okay, good. Going to start walking the other way. And I kind of, let my guard down for a second because I figured it was over. And Woody was on our porch, which is, behind railings. So I blocked him off from getting off the front porch. So I thought to myself, okay, this thing is done. And 15 seconds later, the dogs are in front of my house. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? Like, I don't understand how this just happened. It's like the Huskies suddenly wanted to go the other way, so the owner's like, I guess I'm not going that way after all because the Huskies want to go this way. And that's where I once again, legally, I understand it. I have no leg to stand on here. I have no leg to stand on. I am readily admitting that. I am not looking for any legal sympathy. I'm not looking for some, huckster attorney who's got 17 billboards around town. I'm not looking for services. I promise you, none of that's the case. But I get frustrated because clearly somebody sees me in a front yard with 3 little kids and a dog and does insinuate to me that they are going the other direction. And then decides to not go that direction. Well, because the Huskies that weigh more than the owner, who is also a senior citizen, wants to go a different way. So let's listen to the dogs because suddenly they want to go this way. So now it's on me to figure out how to keep the situation under control. But once again, I will admit that when it comes to keeping Woody in line and having him, taken care of like I should have, and that is on a leash strapped to the railings on the front porch, which is usually what we do, I didn't do that. And I screwed that up. But, hopefully he's going to be okay, and I think he will be. But you never know, As they said to me yesterday, when you're sedating a dog of this age, you got to do all the tests and do all the things that need to be done. And unfortunately, it ended up being a long night and an expensive night at that. Expensive accident is what I would call it. Some breaking news. Chiefs are going to open up the season against the Ravens in an AFC championship rematch. Woo! So that just came down here. It'll kick off Thursday, September 5th. That will be the home opener for the Chiefs as they roll out another Super Bowl banner against the Baltimore Ravens. How about that?